Welcome back to the channel, Classic Volkswagen Lovers, Junior with Classic VW Bucks and Sunny's Super Beetle. Today I'm going to be working with Sunny's front suspension, and what I want to do is lower the car 2 inches down. Right now, as it sits, the car is sort of like lifted in the front, and I just want to cut. I just want to modify the suspension so that the car sits either just level or a tiny bit down, just like that. Let me go ahead and show you my my struts. I have a spare set from another car that I used to own, and those are the ones that I am going to be modifying. So right now, these are the struts. As you can see, there's some white spots. That's from the chemical that I used to remove the surface rust that was over them. All of these white spots that you see here, they used to be surface rust. So my spring coil, it's a tangential coil, which means that this spring here has one end that if I stand it on its own, it'll fall. That's the tangential, and it's like the coil, it's open to the air. And I'll show you with one that I already have out, so you can understand what I mean by that. So what we're going to do next is we're going to remove the spring, and we're going to measure the height of the spring, and we're going to cut off 1 inch drop in the coil, which will give me a 2-inch drop in the car. Remember that whatever happens in your coil, it's a 1:2 ratio, so make sure you understand that terminology. Let me show you the other spring that I already took out from the strut. This is it right here. As you can see, it's standing on its own, so that means that this bottom end of the spring, it's square. If I flip it around and I let it go by itself, you can see that it tends to fall. If you stand it by itself and you let it go, it tends to fall. Okay, so if you do it on the other side, you can see that it stays on its own. So that means that the end of the spring that I can cut is this one right here. Also notice I have some blue paint here, some blue marker paint. That means that this is the top of my spring. I want to make sure that when I install the spring back into the struts, I install it in the right direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tape measure and measure right here to the top of this end of the coil right there, and to the top right there, that is 17 inches. So if I want to do a 2-inch drop in Sunny, I have to move my tape measure until I have a 1-inch drop, which means that whenever I get that 1-inch drop from the top, which is 17, that's where I will mark my spring and cut that coil off. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that, cut that, come back, put it back together, and show you what the car looks like. Okay, so I'm going to be cutting right there on that mark outside that. Okay, so that was fairly easy. I have 16¼ which that was a 3/4 inch drop. 3/4 times 2 it's going to be 1.5 inch drop in the car. So I'll start there. If I like it, I'll leave it like that. If I don't, I can always cut some more that way. So I'll go ahead and put this back together. And I'm not going to record me installing this back in the strut, but pretty much it's a pretty simple step. You put your spring compressors, you put them on, you compress the spring, you assemble back your strut just like so to look exactly the way it was before. Make sure that you install every single one of these components in the same order you take them apart. Okay, so off cameras I went and put the first one that I cut the spring off. I put it back together for a test run. Next, I'm going to go ahead and cut the second one. I actually took this apart also off cameras. Again, following safety, make sure you always use your spring compressors. And I already measured my height as to where I wanted it to be. This one seems to be a little bit higher than the first spring. The first spring was 17 inches tall. This one was 17 1/4. So 17 1/4, if I want to do a 1.5 drop. So from here to the top of that is a 3/4 drop. This is a 1:2 ratio. So when I cut this off here and I put the spring back together, it means that the car should lower 1.5, meaning 1.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this right there, assemble the strut back together, and then proceed to go to the car and install these and see what it looks like. Okay, so we are in the garage right now, and if you can see here, from the top of the tire to the edge of the arch in the fender, we got 4 inches. So now I'm going to go ahead, take apart the front suspension and install my new modified one and see how low the car sits after I install them. Okay guys, so let me show you where we at now. I still haven't moved the car back and forth, but as you can see right here on this side, I am shy at 3 3/8 of an inch, and on the other side here, which is the driver's side, I'm at basically the same thing, 3 3/8. But look what happens when I step on the bumper. So if I just apply some pressure here on the bumper, you can see that it goes down to 2 3/4, and I'm pretty sure I have an empty tank. So I'm gonna go ahead and move the car back and forth to see what it looks like once the struts have actually settled, and then determine whether I need to cut some more or not. So it's better off to cut less than too much, you know, even though it's troublesome sometimes to get these parts apart. But because I have been applying anti-seize and just recently, you know, installed new bolts, probably I won't have as much problem as if I hadn't done that. Here it is. I went to the gas station and fuel my tank. I went for the premium gas, and I spent $29.50 to fuel the tank. With the way that the fuel put in the tank and in the car, now the car it's sitting at 2.5. So from 4 inches that it was before, so before we were at 4 inches right here, that's where the fender was sitting at, where my finger is at right there. So now we are at 2.5. So Do I want to lower that half an inch? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure yet. I guess for the time being, I'm going to leave it like that. I still have to do some other little detailing to the car before the Volkswagen Fest, and I want to make sure that I can drive the car to the Volkswagen Fest. So for the time being, I'm going to leave it like that. So from 4 inches to 2.5, I think that's an improvement. It looks much better. If you look at the car from the side here, it gives it a more even look compared to the rear tire. I think for the time being, I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to take them apart and spray paint the cartridge and make them look nice, and then put them back together. So that's pretty much what I'm going to do for the time being. Yes, I'm happy with that. All right, so that's pretty much it for now. As always, every time I try to record something, an aircraft goes by. Okay, so that's it for now. So if this is the first time that you're watching my channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until then, this is Junior with Classic VW Bucks. Junior out.